So in Denmark, we have quite a few eco-villages. We have like 32 eco-villages and some on its way. So here you can see they're plastered around, mostly actually around the bigger cities, because even people like rural life, they still want to be close to the city somehow. But the funny thing about eco-villages is that it's a global movement. It's everywhere. We have 10,000 of eco-villages all over the world in whatever country. In Sweden, you have a lot of villages. So you see here a diversity. What's happened also is that as villages do experiment with the green transition, how to be green practices, we are also very engaged in how to spread that. And that's why we came into this project that Tyre was introducing to you. You see here, this eco-village that I just showed here, it's a very popular one that I always show because it has these family forms and ownership forms and whatever. But what happened is that around this eco-village, we now have 10 other communities just around it because community living is so popular in Denmark. And I think that's why I call this little presentation also recent trends in Denmark, because recent trends in Denmark is that community living is becoming increasingly popular. Those of you who are from Denmark will know this because who matter who you talk to in Denmark will know somebody who lives in a community, I would say. And why is that? It's because it's popular and because it works. And therefore also it has become a market. So nowadays we have many different actors involved in creating eco-villages and co-housing projects all over Denmark, from the self-grown communities, from the grassroots, to the developer-driven communities, or to the ones that we say from the side where organizations or companies have a concept, find people who can match the concept and make up a community. So that's the situation in Denmark. And I show it here today because a lot of people come to Denmark to follow this development. And even as Danish people, sometimes we don't really know that we are so interesting for the whole world to come and study about our community movement. That we experiment in how to make decisions that are inclusive and good for all of us and for the environment. Then we like to produce our own food and to serve it well. The taste of what we have mastered to accomplish together in the fields is very different from what we buy in the shops. So that's also a significant characteristics. And then we have fun and cozy times together. A lot also. We have courses and events to share and to exchange. And we can also do something that is a bit more than if we were just individual households. So here I put some photos of one of our refugee projects that we've run in my eco-village for like nature rehabilitation and so on, which could never have happened if we were just individuals, but can happen because we have a lot of shared facilities and activities and people who wanted to meet all these refugees who wanted to, seek a different purpose in life of being here in Denmark as refugees. Also engagement, like when the Ukrainian people started coming, when the war broke up, we could go and collect food and send to Ukraine and stuff like this. Why can we do this? We can do that because we are a lot of people together and inspire each other for action. And I think that's the main point in this, the community feeling that is so much closer when you also live together. I'm showing you this to show that it has strength. There's a lot in volume, but it has a lot of strength because we can work on it on scale as well. So yes, now we have this growing market for community living. We have a lot of companies who make up long lines of wooden houses with solar cells on and so on, where you quite easily, if you have a lot of money, can buy yourself to a more green lifestyle. But one thing is, of course, the infrastructure, the framework around it. Another thing is the lifestyle that people live when they live in these communities. So yeah, these copy-paste models saying what characterizes a green community, how can you make more of them, how can you scale up? It's a question that always comes. Like, how can we scale this up so it's not just a very small percentage of people who can live in these communities? How can we spread it out? And that's where the green neighborhood communities and all these new concept have also become very relevant. So here I just show that in Denmark we have so many different actors in the Danish field of co-housing and co-living. We have a lot of different actors now in the field over the last 10 years or so. This is a very, expansive sector. Yeah. Also wanted to show that a new focus in Denmark is to stop building more, but instead to transform existing building. This is an old hotel that was transformed into a community. And this happens more and more. Old schools, factories, hotels, senior homes and whatever that are being transformed through a lot of processes. Here I worked with this project for a year or whatever until we have now 30 seniors moving in to create a senior cooperative together. So the transformation of existing building mass is very important. And when there's such a huge development in Denmark within the co-housing sector, there's a lot of research project going on. One of the big questions is, does it work? Is it true that people in co-housing are happier? Is it true that they solve the climate issues or at least work on it? And all these kind of things. So yes, as movements, as the co-housing movement and the eco-village movement, we are being studied by a whole lot of researchers, and we are also part actively in different research projects. So first we had this one, which was Collective Movements and Pathway to Sustainable Societies, where the Eco-Village Association was part, where it was concluded also that when you live in an eco-community, you have a less CO2 emission average than the normal Danish person. So this, of course, was promising and was then continued in the project that I'm going to talk about also today. It's called SAMSKAB. It's called Co-Creations, where we focused on 3 residential areas: the co-housing and the eco-villages, the residential areas with more like villas on a normal street, and the social housing sector. So to check out how will the green transition initiatives look like in these 3 different typologies of residential areas, and how does it work? So this is what I'm going to tell you about in the next presentation that I have. So this was basically a little background of the eco-village movement in Denmark, the co-housing movement. And as I'm in Sweden, I inserted here a final slide about some of my favorite quotes from Pippi Langstrømpe, who happens to be invented here in Sweden, where I am right now. And I just like very much her quotes that are very inspirational for me. I never met a challenge I could not take. I never tried this before, which means I can do it. I believe in doing things my own way, even if it goes against the stream or the normal norms. Or sometimes it's cool to be a little bit crazy. Because why did I add these ones? It's because to try out things, to be innovative, to experiment, to confront the normal, this is all what eco-village life is about. And this is all what the green transition needs, that we turn things upside down and try and do things in new ways. That's why I brought in Pippi. And you see me on the picture holding a zebra that we had the opportunity to have as a house guest for 4 years in my eco-village. And people would say, no, that's not true. You don't have a zebra. But we did have a zebra. And I think it's just important to show that everything is possible when you believe in it. Yes. So this was the first presentation that I had. Then I will share my other presentation, because this will answer exactly what Tyre was saying. What does it actually, how does it work? What is the impact of it? The impact of green communities. And that is exactly what we wanted to talk about, because last week we concluded a 3 years research project about what does it really matter. So we have 2 reports that I will briefly introduce to you today. One is called Green Action Power. It's about the role of community in the green transition. That is a report that we made, concluding 3 years of research in these 3 residential forms. And another report that's called Green Communities and Carbon Footprint. where we made a survey to investigate what does it actually matter if you're part of the green movement, if you live in an eco-village, if you're a part of a green organization. What does it actually mean when you look at it from a CO2 perspective? So that's what I'm going to share with you now. So how do we define a green community? We defined it in this research project as a group of people who share an interest in climate and the environment and who come together to participate in shared green activities. And this could be, for instance, like the photos show, growing food together, in vegetables and gardens and whatever, or having a CSA, community supported agriculture, having a box scheme, making sure to connect more to where the food comes from and how to grow it. The next one is nature, connection to nature, nature walks, building forests, preservation of nature, and so on. Third one is to eat together. Climate-friendly meals shared in community is amazing because it's not only the meals, but also the discussions that you have while you eat. And the last photo shows the thrift shop, the secondhand shop, the changing things with each other without a cost. But instead of consuming and buying, that you can change things with each other. And those are 4 very typical forms from eco-villages, but it's also 4 typical forms that can be done even if you don't live together in an eco-village. And this is the point here that many of the practices from the co-housing communities and the eco-villages can easily be transitioned into something that everybody can do, even if they don't live together. So in the project, we had the distinction between communities, fællesskaber in Danish, and associations, foreninger. Why? Because one of the points in the whole project was that people enjoy to be mobilized and engaged and so on. People enjoy to be in communities together. And sometimes it can be a bit boring and a bit far-fetched to be in associations together, to have general assemblies, constitutions, boards, a lot of rules and bureaucracy, and so on. Many people find it boring and abstain from being part of the normal associations, which are actually very typical in Denmark. We have so many associations. It takes half an hour, then you've made a new association with doing the paperwork. So what we looked at was like, how does the green transition, how does it flourish more on a community level in these fællesskaber, in communities, instead of the traditional associations? And what is the relationship between them? That is some of what we investigated. So we did a survey asking people in these green communities about different things, about their consumption of beef or flight tickets and so on. And here is a question: which factor actually contribute most to a lower carbon footprint? Is it the gender? Is it that you're part of a green community? Or is it actually your income level? Do you produce less or more CO2 the more money you get? So you can guess which one would win this little competition, this little quiz. Ta-da! You see the results here. To be a member of a green community makes you reduce your carbon emissions by 34% as opposed to the average Dane. And I think this is a quite strong result, actually. And it's the first time that we have evidence for it. And sometimes we need data and evidence to actually be able to prove that the direction we are going and what we're doing actually prove to have a significant impact in the field. So here you see that we interviewed 1,002 representatives from the normal Danish population and 505 members of green communities, being from the eco-village associations, from the green neighborhood organizations, from the co-housing, and from the Naturfredningsforening, the Danish Nature Foundation. So the conclusion was that in general, the carbon footprint is 34% below national average for members of green communities. And that in itself, of course, is a powerful result. But when you look at also here the differences, you'll be able to see that the Løs, which is the Eco-Village Association, is down to -43, which is quite a lot. And then the people from the green neighborhood communities, they are down to minus 47 in this one. Wow, this is actually a bit higher than the other one. Oh, well, anyway. And what we can see here is also that if you live in a community alone without having a specific green purpose, that is the co-housing, the BUF it's called, you have already a minus 28% in your carbon emissions just by living together without having a lot of green visions in your constitution and so on. Simply by living together, it has an impact. And there are many reasons for that, like shared dinners. Instead of having 40 stoves going on at the same time, you have one big one in the common house, the same with the washing machines and so on and so forth. And the discussions you have when you meet for the common dinners and so on. Of course, if you have an explicit green purpose, like in the eco-village, the consumption will be way less. Yes, so these are some of the results that we show to say that, yes, it does have an impact, but it doesn't stop there. If you see here, if you join more green communities than one, if you both live in a co-housing and you're also part of a green neighborhood community and something else, the more green communities you participate in, the more your reductions will actually go down, your emissions will go down. So this is quite interesting that, and maybe you can say that it's quite natural, but here at least we get some statistics and some facts on it, that the more you are engaged as a person in green community transition, the less emissions you will have. Because we asked all these people, what kind of activities were they part of? What kind of green communities did they take part of? Yes. And the next slide here will show that it's also about what you do. It's not just about being a member. And this shows that in each new type of activity, being a vegetable box or growing a forest, repairing your things, trading your things, growing vegetables, or an energy community or whatever that you would be part of, each new type of activity that a person will be part of will lead to another reduction in the CO2 emissions, and also how often you take part in it. So all this is what the report is saying, and I can send you a link to the report that we just translated to English. So you can see the correlation between being a member of a green community, taking part in activities, and how often you take part, and how that will affect the CO2 consumption and a CO2 reduction for more activity. Yes. There are, of course, when you do a scientific research like this, there's a lot of other side results which we put on here. That, for instance, new members in these green communities, they consume a bit more, but after they have been part for 1 or 2 years, their emissions will also drop. And I think you can say that, why does it drop? It's not because you're forced to do something, but it's through the interaction with other people and the inspiration that you get from other people together. Then it will actually make you think and reflect more before you consume. And I think that's the main result, you can say, or the main conclusion that we have from this report, that being part of a green community is exactly this, that it's not just because you are part of a communal meal that makes you fly less or eat less beef or something like that. It's not because you're being shamed out. It's more because of exactly what I said, this a level of reflection that you get, that people who participate in these activities think more before they make choices and before they consume. So that's part of our conclusions. Another funny part is also that when we ask about life satisfaction, then life satisfaction among members of the green communities is actually quite higher than among non-members of green communities, even though they consume less and so on. So those results are also part of the reports. So the conclusion is here, that if you participate in these green communities, yes, you have a significantly lower carbon footprint. And it's the active participation, of course, not just the membership. It's the active participation in particular that leads to the behavioral change and the lower carbon footprint. Not learning or shaming, but engagement and reflection. And then also the higher life satisfaction. And the whole conclusion from our work over the last 3 years is that sometimes all this citizen-led green transition efforts go a little bit under the radar. Even it represents an important part of the green transition efforts. It's like you can do a lot with infrastructure, a lot with top-down visions and ambitions and climate goals and whatever, but what comes from the down, from the grassroots, from people's own initiatives, have a huge impact. And therefore, one of our recommendations also after this research is to look at municipalities, interest organizations, and whatever, and seek for more support for what comes from the grassroots. So I think that is the end of my presentation here. I will switch off my shared screen, and then I'm very much ready to hear your comments, your reactions, your questions, whatever, to what I shared with you today.
Thank you very much.